Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Charlton in southeast London to King's Cross in north central London. This ride takes around an hour and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. By public transport, the same journey takes around 50 minutes, so cycling is a perfectly competitive way to make this trip. If you find this video useful or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute too, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Okay, let's get going. So we're starting by Charlton railway station and we're going to head down this ramp and onto Charlton Road. This street is a cul-de-sac and doesn't go anywhere, so you're very unlikely to run into any traffic on here. As a result, it's a nice quiet way of getting down to the protected cycle lanes on Woolwich Road, which is where we're heading. Today's video is a long one. It's nearly 10 miles long and I'm looking forward to showing you how it's genuinely pleasant pretty much the whole way. At the end of Rathmore Road, you'll want to wait for a gap in the traffic and then cross over to join the one segregated cycle lanes on the other side of the street. This is a two-way protected cycle track, so whichever direction you're doing this route in, you'll be on this side of the street. One thing worth pointing out here is the Charlton Retail Park on the right hand side. It's likely to be a destination that a lot of people are interested in. It's got big Asda, big Sainsbury's, etc. And if you live nearby, it's a pretty logical place to do a big supermarket shop, and going by bike makes a lot of sense. You've got this protected lane going all the way up there, and if you've got panniers on your bike, you can lug a lot of shopping in them. I'm a relatively recent convert to panniers, which are those bags that you can mount on your bike luggage rack. I always used to just use a backpack, but if you're doing a food shop, panniers are incredible. You can fit so much in them, and importantly, it doesn't weigh you down like a backpack does. So if there's a big cheap supermarket in your part of town that's just a little bit too far to comfortably walk to with a lot of shopping, you should totally cycle to it with panniers. You will not regret it, I promise. Now we are still heading west on Cycleway 4, as this route is called. This section runs from Charlton to Greenwich, and then there's a gap and another section which runs from Greenwich all the way into London Bridge. Fortunately, it's quite easy to bridge the gap at Greenwich, and I'm going to show you how to do it in this video. C9 will eventually run all the way to Woolwich. Greenwich Council and Transport for London have published plans on how they want to do that, so it should only be a matter of time. There are also early plans to run a protected cycle lane through the centre of Greenwich, which would close the gap at Greenwich as well. I don't think we've seen a final design of that part of the route, but it's on the cards all the same. My understanding is that the plan is to close the top arm of the gyratory in central Greenwich and use that as a new pedestrian area, and also have a cycle route running through there, and then continue that along Creek Road and connect it to where the protected cycle lane ends near Deptford Creek. Note that the road changes its name to Trafalgar Road here, a nod to Greenwich's maritime history and the Battle of Trafalgar. We are now coming to the end of this section of the protected lane, and we're going to turn off to the right following that arrow down Old Woolwich Road. Old Woolwich Road was once the main route into Greenwich until the construction of Trafalgar Road. Trafalgar Road provided a much straighter route and a wider boulevard to accommodate more traffic. Today, Old Woolwich Road, as you can see, is a much quieter street, thanks to a closure at the end we entered, and also modal filters like this one here, which makes it a lovely, quiet cycle route. Now, if you look on the right here, you can see a brown brick industrial building. That is actually Greenwich Power Station. It was built in 1906 to provide electricity for London's tram network, which was at the time quite extensive, and today it still retains a similar function, acting as the backup power station for the London Underground. So should the national grid power go down, that kicks into action and keeps the trains running. At the end of Old Woolwich Road, we turn right and then left into the Old Royal Naval College. Now, the college is not open 24 hours, so if you're coming back particularly late or starting particularly early, don't turn into the college, just keep going straight down Park Way and you'll get to the riverside, then turn left and you are allowed to cycle down the riverside. Now, the riverside is a little bit tight, it's quite a narrow path and I don't particularly like cycling down there at busy times, but if you're doing this late, it should be relatively quiet anyway, so hopefully that won't be a problem. Cycling through the college is definitely the most pleasant way to go though, as it's traffic free and there's plenty of space for everyone. After you exit the college, you turn right and head into Cutty Sark Gardens. Now, you may notice that I'm going very slowly through here. That's because I've dismounted to walk through Cutty Sark Gardens, as you are technically not allowed to cycle through the gardens. I think this is very strange, as it's home to not one but two national cycle network routes. Route 1, which goes off to the right there, and Route 4, which goes off to the left past the entrance to the foot tunnel, which is just ahead of us there in that nice brick and glass building. Of course, when you come through here, you will see plenty of people riding on bikes, and there is also, I think, plenty of space for people to be able to do so safely, but I'm going to be cautious and simply wheel my bike. As I exit the gardens though, and as we transition onto the Thames path, I'm going to get back on my bike and start riding down the cycle path. I just want to quickly say something about pronunciation. London has some quite unique place names and I do my best to get them right, and I appreciate when people local to an area put me right. Whenever I come to this part of town, I do get one or two people telling me that long-term local residents pronounce the area as Greenwich rather than Greenwich. I believe this is true and I appreciate the information, which is genuinely interesting, but I would also say that I've never personally heard this pronunciation out loud in my life. Despite Greenwich being quite a famous place with the observatory, mean time, etc. So, assuming that the battle has been sort of lost, I'm going to stick with Greenwich. Please don't take this as a slight though, and I wish you well in your fight. And I would be interested to hear from viewers. Have you ever heard the area pronounced this way? Am I out of touch? Let me know below the line. But anyway, back to the cycling. We are back on Cycleway 4 now, and we're just going to go dead ahead here, but if you look out at this junction with Deptford Church Street, you can see that the junction is designed for bicycles to head off left there down Deptford Church Street. Now, when I filmed this video a couple of months ago, I've had the footage for a while, I wouldn't have recommended cycling down Deptford Church Street, and to be honest, I still don't really recommend it either. But as of November 2024, there are actually protected cycle lanes under construction on Deptford Church Street, which is pretty cool. When they're finished, they'll take you down past Deptford to Deptford Bridge and even connect to a route which will take you into Lewisham. And that will all connect really nicely to this protected lane, Cycleway 4, which takes us off to, Charlton, London Bridge and beyond. But before I finish talking about that, I just want to point out that you should always pay attention when you're cycling, because a van might just try and murder you at any moment. I think that's probably the worst incident that I've had in several years of making these videos, and all I can say is that I'm glad that my brakes were in working order. Anyway, the lanes down Deptford Church Street should be finished within the next few months, maybe even this year, I'm not sure. And when they are, it's going to be a lot easier to get to Lewisham. So if anyone wants to see how to get to and from Lewisham from anywhere in particular on a bike, do let me know in the comments where you'd like me to link it to. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do make sure that you just hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that and all the other videos that I have planned for this channel. There is a bunch of new infrastructure and new low traffic neighbourhoods and other such things planned for London and under construction at the moment. And I always go out and check out new infrastructure as soon as it opens, when it enables new routes for videos. So yeah, do hit that subscribe button if you want to stay on top of new cycle infrastructure opening across London. Talking of new infrastructure, I actually find it really difficult to believe that this section of Cycleway 4 coming up here that we're on now actually only opened at the beginning of 2024. It's less than a year old. To me, this infrastructure feels like it's been around forever, and it's already a part of how I get around this part of town and how I think about what routes are available to take. It's amazing how quickly infrastructure like this works its way into the fabric of the city, and you can see it's the case for so many people already because there are so many people already using it. I think those Deptford Church Street lanes will be great because that's exactly where we should be building more cycle lanes, connecting to the ones that we've already done, so you have this safe network that everybody can use. This section could do with some refinements. You may have noticed that there was a bus blocking the junction back there, which slowed us down as we had to carefully weave around the bus to get across the junction. That put us in conflict with a pedestrian crossing. And you can often run into similar issues with cars blocking the junction after the station there, although we didn't run into any this time. Hopefully the timings of the lights there can be revisited and the yellow box junction also reinstated at the junction to stop buses and other vehicles from blocking it and messing everything up like that. But overall, it's a huge improvement on what came before, and I don't think you see kids and teenagers out on their bikes to such the same extent as you do today without these improvements in infrastructure, even though they are done with temporary materials on quite a low budget. Talking of budgets, on Wednesday we did get the new government's first budget, and there was a new financial settlement for Transport for London. It is not yet clear what that means for cycling, walking, active travel infrastructure investment in the capital. I think there'll probably be some internal debates in TfL about how to spend that money, and the vast majority of it is probably going to be spent on new Piccadilly line trains and extra Elizabeth line trains. But fingers crossed, we might see more projects getting funded in the coming year than previously. There's certainly a long list of things which have been consulted on or put on ice since the pandemic and which currently don't have funding to proceed, which it would be great to see them build. This route today has three main sections. The first, which we're currently on, is along Cycleway 4. In a minute, we're going to turn off onto Cycleway 14, which is more of a quiet Backstreet route, but I think quite a good one. Then after that, we're going to get onto the protected lanes of Cycleway 6, which will take us north up to King's Cross. There are a few smaller links that I've included as well, just to make it easier, like the bypass around Greenwich, and also a little trick that we're going to do to get into King's Cross the nice way. It shouldn't be too difficult a route to follow, but it is quite a long one, so if you need a little bit of extra help with navigation and remembering the way to go, then you can always download the free digital map of the route, which is available in a link in the description below the video. It's hosted on a website called Komoot, and you can use it in their app, but you can also just download the GPX file, which is linked on the page there, and use it on whatever app or device you find most useful. I do make digital maps for all of the videos I do on this channel, but usually if I don't mention them in the commentary, then somebody tends to ask for a map, because I know not everyone checks the description, so I guess that's kind of natural. But they are there, and I hope they come in handy. Right, hopefully you've noticed that we've left Cycleway 4. We're no longer cycling on a protected cycle lane down a main road. Instead, we're taking this Backstreet route. It's Cycleway 14 and it's quite easy to follow even though it's wiggling through the back streets. That's because there's C14 and a cycle symbol written on the ground. So just follow those symbols and also the green and blue signs that you can see on some of the lampposts. It is a little bit wiggly, but generally, as you can see from the people walking in the road, it's pretty low traffic and it's kind of a pleasant ride too. It takes you via the lovely pedestrianised Bermondsey Street, which we were just on, and other features like that, which are kind of nice places to stop if you're not in a hurry. I actually love this part of town south of London Bridge. I think it's really underrated. I do enjoy Maltby Street Market, but I've also been meaning to check out a French restaurant called Casse Croûte on Bermondsey Street, and also the Fashion and Textile Museum, which is pretty near there. If anyone knows any other good spots around here, then do let me know in the comments, because I'm always up for exploring, particularly when it's easy to access said exploring by bike, which this area definitely is. You'll notice that we get a protected cycle lane at points in certain directions like the one we just went through there, but mostly we're on the carriageway through here, and as you can see it's completely fine. It's pretty low traffic generally. That's thanks to a closure up ahead, so Newcomen Street is closed to motor traffic at the junction with Borough High Street. As a result, it's nice and quiet here outside the pub, and it's a great place for people to sit, as well as a great place for us to ride. It's funny how those things tend to go together. When you get to the other side of the high street, in this direction you have a protected cycle lane. In the opposite direction you're still riding in the carriageway. This quickly leads to what I love to see, which is combined public realm and cycle infrastructure. It leads into a pedestrianised square with seating for a pub, a cafe and another cafe on the right here. Really good stuff. We then cross Southwark Bridge Road, and the street on this other side of the street is also filtered. It's got bollards preventing motor traffic from using it, keeping the whole thing nice and quiet for us. I love the planting that's gone in on the left here and the trees on both sides of the road. They're both really little touches, but they just make the whole thing feel so much more hospitable than it otherwise would do. Just that little flash of greenery. There's one thing coming up that winds me up a little bit on the left here. It's funnily enough right outside Transport for London's headquarters. For some reason, parking is permitted in the westbound lane here on weekends and in the evenings, but it's such a narrow lane that the parking takes up the whole lane. This is the official route of the cycleway, so I reckon that should be double yellow line the whole way down. Now, if you look closely under the bridge, you'll see on the right hand side it says Blackfriars Station. That is actually the site of the original Blackfriars Station. It opened in 1864 but closed shortly after in 1869 when it was replaced by Waterloo East Station, which is just over to our left. What we now know as Blackfriars Station didn't open until 1886, and it was originally called St Paul's, although the current station does confusingly also incorporate the old entrance of a third station called Blackfriars Bridge. But unlike the modern day station, Blackfriars Bridge Station was confusingly not on the bridge. You can see the modern station just to our right there. For our purposes, Blackfriars Bridge means this brilliant two-way cycle track, which is a joy to cycle down and makes getting over the River Thames an absolute breeze. The only fly in the ointment, so to speak, are these black anti-terror barriers. They are quite an obstacle to navigate, especially when it's busy at rush hour, and I do have a suspicion that they might have sent a few people to hospital themselves. C6 carries on really nicely for the next few minutes. My only complaint about this section is there are so many traffic lights, although we were pretty lucky on this run and we basically got a green wave through all of them. It can sometimes take quite a while to get through though. One issue is that even the smallest side roads have actually been signalised, and I suspect that if TfL were building this lane today, they'd probably have actually just banned more of those turns to make them safe rather than having quite so many signals. Now at this point in the route, the cycleway actually splits, so northbound, which we're going in, it's on this side of the road, and southbound it's a protected cycle lane on the other side of the road. One small caveat though is that when I came down here there were some pretty heavy building works going on and the opposite direction was actually closed. That is now reopened, so you don't have to worry. Normally you would be in your own protected lane if you were travelling southbound. Now we're continuing on Cycleway 6 here, but there's a very sharp 90-degree turn coming up. In fact there's two in quick succession, so it's good to slow down here and just give yourself a little bit of time to do it, and make sure that there aren't any pedestrians about to step out in front of you. There is a slight incline, so be prepared for that, and then make another switch into Saffron Hill. You only have to do this in this direction. In the other direction, when you follow the Cycleway 6 signs, you'll actually be directed onto Farringdon Road, and there is a protected lane southbound. There just isn't one northbound, and you're routed through these back streets. So this short section of Cycleway 6 is actually asymmetrical depending on whether you're going northbound as we are or southbound. The narrow streets around here are incredibly charming, as are their historic sounding names. Although Herbal Hill, which sounds like a really old name, is actually one that dates from the 1930s. It used to be just an extension of Saffron Hill on the other side of the street. The route is now back to being symmetrical, by the way, so if you're doing this southbound towards Charlton, you just continue down Warner Street and Ray Street and you wouldn't turn up Herbal Hill. The signs would actually just direct you onto Farringdon Road. It's really intuitive when you do it. The buildings on our left are brand new, and there's been a development going on there pretty much the whole time that I've been recording these videos, so it's nice to see it finished at last. There's a new cafe on the corner, but more importantly it should also mean less disruption cycling down Cycleway 6 for us. Do be careful as we cross into Pakenham Street here, as we don't have priority at this junction and there could be cars coming down it, although it is usually relatively light when it comes to traffic. I find this area kind of interesting because it's incredibly residential and actually quite low density as well, despite being really just a few minutes walk from King's Cross station. And don't miss this left turning into Ampton Street here, which has this lovely garden layout, which I'd love to see on more streets around the city. On many of the streets around here, people cycling tend to outnumber other vehicles quite significantly. One indicator of a really healthy street is what we're seeing here, a guy in what looks like a vicar's robe cycling on a bike. I reckon that if you start seeing vicars on bicycles around where you live, then it's a pretty good sign that your streets are going in the right direction. As we pull into Seaford Street, I love seeing this pub on the left here, where the pavements have been built out a bit to create more space for people to sit out and enjoy the sun with a drink. It certainly beats another parking space. Around the next corner, we're going to find ourselves briefly on one of my favourite streets in London, and that's Cromer Street. It's super low traffic thanks to just a couple of bollards and just has fantastic vibes. It's what a local high street in London should just be like, in my opinion. We're not on it for long, but it's okay because on Widbourne Street we've got McGlynn's pub on the right hand side here, which is a top-notch pub if you're ever in the area. It did close down briefly after the long-standing landlord died, but I think it's reopened now and it's definitely worth checking out and supporting if you like a good traditional pub. You can see King's Cross Station at the end of Argyle Square here, so you might be tempted to just ride straight on. But there's actually a much better way of getting right up to the station. You turn right into St Chad Street here, which is pedestrianised, and then go left on Birkenhead Street, and that takes us up to a crossing over the Euston Road, which is otherwise a bit of a pain to get over. In my experience, it's kind of common to see cars stopped over the crossing when it's green for pedestrians, and that's kind of a pain, but we were lucky here and there were no issues. Do be aware that it is a two-phase crossing though, so you'll need to wait again on the island, although it's not usually a particularly long wait. Just don't head straight into the second lane as traffic will still be moving there. And we've done it, we're right in front of King's Cross Station, and St Pancras Station is just visible in the background there too. That was an incredibly long ride, certainly one of the longest that I've done on this channel, but what blew me away about it was just how pleasant it was the whole time, apart from that time that a van nearly tried to kill me. But the quality of the infrastructure was really excellent the whole way, and if you look on this map you can see how far we'd come. Even a few years ago you wouldn't have been able to ride that anywhere near as comfortably, so well played to all the councils along the way and to Transport for London for improving that route. Sometimes it does feel like progress can take a long time, but this video is, I guess, proof that it is slowly happening. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks especially to everybody who contributes to fund the channel on the Patreon. I really appreciate it very much. If anyone else really liked the video and is feeling particularly generous, you can find a link to the Patreon in the description below the video. If you did enjoy it, then please do leave a like, as it does help others find the video by boosting it in YouTube's algorithm. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do make sure you hit subscribe so you're alerted to new videos, including on all that new infrastructure that I'm going to be showcasing as it opens over the coming weeks, months and years. We're not going anywhere, and thanks so much for watching and for supporting this. See you guys all again below the line in the comments or next time.